Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Chantal Fuqua, and I am a program director with the Inclusive STEM Ecosystems for Equity and Diversity, also known as IUSE program, at the American Association for the Advancement of Science. I'm currently working with my colleagues on the AAAS IUSE initiative, which is co-hosting today's IUSE New Awardee and Grant Management session. I also want to give some credit and thank you to my colleagues, Lauren and Thomas, for making this meeting happen and all of their logistics and other great work. So before we jump into the session, I have a few housekeeping notes. First, we want to make sure that you know that the presentation is being recorded. The recording and the slides will be made available in the coming days, and they will be on our website, that is AAAS-iuse.org. And this will also be in the email that you'll receive after this. So there'll be a link to those materials. Additionally, we have closed captioning for the workshop today. You can download and view the full transcript by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your screen. If you have trouble with that, then feel free to chat one of us, the AAAS staff, to help you. For those of you who are new to the AAAS IUSE, this initiative seeks to support faculty, students, and the greater undergraduate STEM education community by disseminating research and knowledge about STEM teaching, learning, equity, and institutional transformation. We invite you to learn more about the AAAS IUSE initiative on our website and hope that you will join our community as future contributors. You can also follow us on Twitter at IUSE Program or also on LinkedIn, basically that same symbol or tag. And in that way, you can stay up to date on all of our events along with the blogs that we have on the website. So we also hope that you'll check those out. Now, I would like to pass it over to our colleagues at the National Science Foundation, who will begin the session. Dr. Jill Nelson has a short presentation. We'll also have opportunities for Q&A sessions and for you to engage with other program officers at NSF. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Chantal. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to join Chantal and AAAS in welcoming you and also congratulating you. We receive many more excellent proposals in the IUSE program than we're able to fund, given our limited budget. And through the NSF review process, we identify the projects we feel have the greatest potential for contributing to improving undergraduate STEM education. And your projects are among those that have been awarded, so congratulations. I hope all of you had a chance to view the brief video that AAAS sent out in which Corby Hovis in the Division of Undergraduate Education talks about project reporting, and Janelle Ghazi from the Division of Grants and Agreements talks about best practices in managing project budgets. For today's webinar, we have NSF staff on hand from both divisions. And if you can go to the next slide, I think we have a list. Yes, thank you. So we have from the Division of Undergraduate Education, as well as the Division of Grants and Agreements. I'm Jill Nelson, and my colleagues Corby, who's now famous from the video you watched ahead, and also Elise Lockwood are here with us. And we also have representation from the Division of Grants and Agreements, which is great because they have all the expertise in budget questions. Rashawn, do you want to introduce the DGA folks?
No problem. Thank you, Jill. Hi, my name is Rashawn Ferrier. I am the team leader for the EHR Directorate in the Division of Grants and Agreements. So basically, you will see my name on every amendment, award letter. So I'm the last person that you'll see on the letter when you get your award. Also, we have Ms. Beatrice Azor. She's your grant officer. She deals with all the allowability, making sure that your budgets are correct. And that's pretty much your point of contact when you're dealing with post-award administration. And we also have Carly Hampton. She is our student detail, and she helps us with all kind of post-award administrative work as well. So those are the two. And I think I also have my colleague, Cartia Brown Morgan. She jumped on the line as well. And she's over DGE and DRS portfolios within the EHR Directorate. And that's us. So thank you, Jill, for having us.
Thank you so much for coming. This is a great opportunity to ask questions and get some direct response from DGA while we can have a conversation here. So please feel free to put questions in the Q&A at any time and take advantage of that. So you can go to the next slide, please. Very quickly, I promise to keep this short. I have just a little bit of new guidance for new awardees and new PIs and co-PIs, and then we'll move into primarily Q&A. Next slide. And the first one is that it's very important to be familiar with an NSF document we call the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide. We often refer to that as the PAPG or PAPG for even shorter. The PAPG is a comprehensive guide to the rules and regulations related to proposal writing, review, and award processes at NSF. It's an outward-facing document in the sense that it's written specifically for the public, but as NSF staff, we also use it extensively and refer to it in our work. So it's used both externally and internally. The PAPG has an official publication number that changes every year, and it refers to the fiscal year for which it is current. So the current PAPG for fiscal year 22 is NSF 22-1. The website is included on this slide, so you can find it there, but you can also just Google NSF 22-1 if you're trying to access the PAPG, and you should be able to find it. The PAPG is divided into two large parts. The first part consists of the proposal preparation and submission guidelines. The second part consists of the award and administration guidelines. So those are really the pieces that are most relevant to this new awardees session today. If you haven't already, and you may have in the proposal writing process, if you haven't already familiarized yourself with the PAPG, I'd encourage you to do that. At least take a look through, be aware of what's there, so you know where you can go look for answers to questions that you might have along the way. Next slide. Thanks. The second thing I want to mention quickly is the process for submitting requests to NSF. We encourage you to use research.gov to submit requests to change aspects of your project. So those might include changing the nature of the project team, like withdrawing or adding a member of the project team, changing the level of effort of a member of the project team. NSF gives you a great deal of freedom in reallocating funds from one category of the budget to another. However, if you want to reallocate funds out of participant support, you must provide a justification for the reallocation and file a formal request for NSF approval. You can always reallocate funds into participant support without official approval. In all cases, if you do reallocate funds in the budget, you should report the reallocation and the reason for it in your annual report. You can also use research.gov to request no-cost extensions. So there are two kinds of no-cost extensions, grantee approved and NSF approved. The first no-cost extension you request will be grantee approved. Grantees, or PIs, you can use those interchangeably, may authorize a one-time extension of the end date of the grant of up to 12 months, so an additional year, if extra time is required to complete the original scope of work within the funds already made available. Grantees are not allowed to extend an award that contains a zero balance. So no-cost extensions are only relevant when there's still funds available in your award. The grantee must notify NSF and provide supporting reasons for the extension at least 10 calendar days prior to the end date specified in the grant. All grantee-approved extension notifications must be signed and submitted by the AOR, which is the authorized organizational representative. For many people, that might be a sponsored research office. And that's via research.gov. If additional time beyond the first no-cost extension is required, the AOR can submit a request for an approved no-cost extension. That request should be submitted at least 45 days prior to the end date of the grant. It must explain the need for the extension, and in that case, include an estimate of the unobligated funds remaining and a plan for their use. The first NSF no-cost extension is considered for approval by your cognizant program officer. The second and any subsequent no-cost extension requests will be subject to approval of an NSF grants officer. So they're making their way all the way to DGA. All right, next slide. Thanks. And this is my last slide. Says ask early, ask often. In general, please communicate with us. We do really like to hear from PIs, and we're happy to do everything that we can to answer questions. And there's lots of questions we don't know the answers to, and we go find them for you. I should say I don't know the answers to, and I will go find them. So please do make sure you know who your cognizant program officer and your grants officer are and how to contact them. So when you receive your award notification from the Division of Grants and Agreements, DGA, it comes with an award letter that identifies both your program officer and your grants officer. I'd encourage you to pose any questions you have about your project to your program officer first. And if the program officer thinks a grants officer is better equipped to handle your question, which often happens, then we'll contact the grants officer. I'd encourage you to contact your program officer via email and make sure you include the NSF award number in the subject line of the email, because that helps us reference and find all the materials quickly. Your program officer might suggest following up with a phone call or a virtual meeting, but it's best to make that initial contact via email, because it gives us a chance to research the best answers to your question, find out who we need to get involved if it's something more complicated. So it helps us be prepared. Be sure to contact your program officer if you're considering making any changes to your project. In addition, be sure to always follow the guidelines in the IUSE solicitation that was active when your award was made. So solicitations do change periodically. Those might just be minor changes, but they might be substantial. And the specific requirements for an IUSE project can vary depending on the particular solicitation that they were submitted in response to. You should also know that your cognizant program officer might change over the lifetime of your project. Some program officers in DUE are permanent employees, but others are rotating program officers who come into NSF from their home institution for a period of 1 to 4 years, and then they rotate back out. So in those cases, there are changes in program officers. You should be able to determine who your current program officer is by checking the award details in Fastlane or research.gov. So those are my 3 general tips for new awardees. Again, prior to this webinar, you had access to a video that had some prior discussion from Corby and from Janelle, who's a staff in DGA, about project reports and about budgets. And our goal today is to answer questions that you have about those videos or more generally about the IUSE program. I think we can probably stop screen sharing and open it up just to question answering from here on out. And I would say probably the easiest thing to do is to use the Q&A, so that if we have a lot of questions, we can answer some of them in the Q&A, and we can have people from the panel answer some of them verbally.
This is my first year of an IUSE award. I received an email yesterday regarding the annual report being due. Do I have until the last month of year 1 to submit the annual report? If I understand the question, yes, I think you do. In the video that we recorded last year, one of my goals was to address some of the most common questions and confusions, and this is one of them you asked. And it's about those terms we use, due and overdue, to describe the report requirements, and about the time frames for submitting them. And so, if you received an email that said your report is due, and it's an annual report, you got that email 3 months before the end of the current budget period. So essentially, you got the report, the email reminder 9 months into your year-long reporting period. The report is due according to NSF's policy and requirements then, but you have until the report becomes overdue, which is at the very end of that year-long reporting period, so the end of the budgetary period. So yeah, you have until the end of the budgetary period to submit the report. NSF policy says you should be submitting it 3 months before then. And the purpose of that is to allow NSF program officers time to approve the report, or to decide it doesn't contain information they want to see, and to bounce it back to you, and to give you time to correct it and get it into shape. In practice, and this is the point I tried to point out in the video, it doesn't tend to take program officers 3 months to approve the report if you've done due diligence with the content. So it is not as if it's an emergency, 9 months into the budgetary cycle and you absolutely have to submit it right then, but NSF policy says you do. At the same time, I wouldn't wait until the last couple of weeks before the year-long period is up, I'd submit it. I'd submit it as early as you can before then.
Thanks, Corby. And there's another question that came into the chat. If you, I know there's both a chat and a Q&A, but if you can put your questions in the Q&A, it helps us keep track of them. There's only so much window keeping track that I'm capable of at once. But it was about whether or not a template for annual reports is available. And I believe there is one that you can download from research.gov. Is that correct?
Yes, last year, with in conjunction with that video that was in the a link was in the pre-reading, I distributed the report template. I think I distributed it as a PDF file or an MS Word document, and I'm not sure whether there was a link to that, in the notes surrounding the video or not. There may have been. I did not look, but yeah, I distributed the template then. If you did not get it, well, we can probably figure out a way to send it to you again, but you can go to research.gov and click on the section that's labeled the annual and final reports. You'll see all sorts of helpful aids there and guidance documents, and one of them you'll see is the template itself there. And another thing you can do, there is a demo platform where you can go in and look at the actual screens and play around with them and do dummy reports if you want to, just to see what's there. If you go to that section, you can see that demo in research.gov. You can see that demo platform, and you can see exactly what's in the report there too. So either look at the MS Word template or PDF, of the template, or go and play around in the demo section of the report section in research.gov.
I'm going to feed you one more annual report question, Corby, because we're on a roll here. For a collaborative grant, can we submit one annual report?
No, you can't, because each award that is part of the collaboration is a separate NSF award. So each award requires a separate report. However, you can collaborate with your collaborators and come up with some common text, if you want to describe what the whole group did during the past year, during the year-long reporting period. And you can build that into each of your reports as kind of a summary of, look, this is what our whole collaboration did. But we expect in your particular report for you to describe what was done at your particular organization or institution in the collaboration, because you had your own people who were paid through the award budget, and you had your own deliverables that you worked on or produced. And it's important that we be able to map the work done at each institution to the budget that that institution was funding. So the people funded the deliverables for that arm of the collaboration. It's important to capture those in the report for your award. So yeah, it's a nice idea if you come up with some common text for everybody to include in their reports, but you need to be sure you describe the contributions of people at your organization and the publications that people at your organization produced or were co-authors on, and so forth in your annual report.
Thanks, Corby. There are a couple questions that have come up about applying for supplements and how to do that, and I'm answering some of them in the chat or in the Q&A, but sort of the short answer is contact your program officer and discuss what it is that you're interested in doing, what the supplement is needed for. There are various types of supplements, but almost always you would talk to the program officer first about what the idea is and where it's going. So that's really the starting point. And if anyone else wants to add to that, please feel free.
I'll just add, maybe with the supplements, my understanding at least is, right, yeah, I think you can try to kind of first just talk with your PO to get a sense of whether what you're thinking is even sort of in the scope of what could work for a supplement, and then in terms of the actual funding amount, you're going to want to try to put forth some justification and some sketch of a budget, and they may ask for, you know, a 2-pager or some more details. And so just start by reaching out, but it doesn't undergo, it's not like you have to submit, you know, another 15-page proposal or something for it. It's a little easier than that, but you can just have a conversation with your PO.
Thanks, Elise. Good points. Rashawn or DGA team, do you want to talk about unused funds and whether they transfer?
Okay, so when you have, say, year one and you have unused funds, those funds do carry over. We don't, you have access to that. We strongly suggest that you use all your funds as much as possible in accordance to your budget. We know that things happen, so the goal is to make sure you use all your funds. So if you don't use all those funds in year one, make sure that you use those funds in year two. So those funds don't get pulled until the final year. So we always tell you not to create a culture of contingency pooling or to be determined pooling as far as when you're dealing with your funding. Because if at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of your grant, and let's say you don't do a no cost extension, that money doesn't go back to NSF, it goes back to the Department of Treasury. So you usually see program officers very, very hard on you about your drawdowns and spending money. We don't tell you when to spend it, we don't tell you when to draw it down. But if you have, let's just say, a $500,000 award, and year one, you've only spent $10,000, the likelihood that you're going to get another increment if you're on a continuing grant is slim to none, because you haven't shown the program officers that you're actually spending the money that you said you needed in year one. So what they would do usually is either postpone that second increment and defer it until the next fiscal year. So be very mindful, your program officers, as well as DGA and as well as the Division of Financial Management. A lot of people at NSF are paying attention to how you are spending your money. So when you spend your money, the better. When you don't spend your money, it's just as bad as you spending it too quickly. So make sure you actually draw down the funds as you need them. We don't tell you how, if it's bi-weekly, bi-monthly, quarterly, annual, however you do it, but make sure you are drawing down those funds. I know I added some extra, Jill and Corby, and at least to that, but I wanted to make sure I got that point across.
No, that's great. And actually, please add extra at any time. I learn every time you all go, oh, I didn't know that. So it's always
because it's important with funding. And another point that I must say, if you don't spend these funds, and this is to all awardees on this call, what happens is when program officers go to their directors, and the directors go to our director at the foundation, and now we have to go to Congress to talk about our future year budget, we have to show that we spent the money we got from Congress the previous year. So if we're constantly getting money returned from the grantees back to Treasury, it's kind of hard to say we need additional funding each fiscal year in forecasting when we're constantly sending money back. So if you don't spend your money, it actually is a detriment to NSF for future funding possibilities. So make sure you spend your money. And that's it on my soapbox. I can go on and on.
So if we had Rashawn's 3 tips, they would be spend your money,
spend your money.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's why we gave you the award in the first place. We don't want you to be caught. I want to say cautious with your spending. We want you to be good stewards of federal funds, but we want you to make sure if you said you were going to use this money for a particular project, a particular task, spend the money.
I'm going to give you it's actually not a follow-up because it's not closely related, but another question that's popped up in the Q&A is when a PI has an award that does not have international travel budgeted, but they would like to reallocate funds for international travel, what do they need to do?
Talk to the program officer. That's the first thing you need to do. Where are you going? Is it in line? Is it in scope with the original project? There needs to be a conversation of why it wasn't included in the original proposal, because some of those, there might be certain countries that might need additional clearance, or some countries that might be prohibited by NSF. So you make sure that you talk to your NSF program officer about where you're going. Are you presenting a part of the science? What are you doing? What's the purpose? And give them an outline with how much you think it'll cost. And basically it's a conversation with the program officer. Once that is done, once you get an acknowledgement or a concurrence from the program officer, it's usually okay to proceed with that travel. Only if you have program officers' concurrence and approval. You can't do it after them. Yeah, go ahead, Beatrice.
Also, activities like this, because they're not normal, they're not, usual, you have to make sure that you include them somewhere in your project report, because in case of an audit, that's the first thing that auditors will be looking at. They will be looking at a justification and the purpose of that trip, and even keeping the agenda and documentation that shows that this was to benefit the project. Is really important that that documentation is kept in case of an audit, because auditors love, strange situations, and usually travel to international countries is one of them.
Good point. Thank you, adding that, Beatrice. See, I told you she was good.
Never doubted it. That's an awesome point. Thank you. At the moment, we answered all the questions. Can't imagine that there aren't more out there, but Corby and Rashawn, if you have tips from experience that you'd like to share while we're waiting for people to have questions, we will happily take them.
I think for one, I think overall, this is something that if some of you guys are saying this is your first award, this might be your first NSF award, congratulations. Number two, the biggest thing or the biggest mistake I see grantees doing is waiting until year 5 to look for new opportunities. Biggest mistake you can make. Always look for opportunities with NSF. The longer you hold out or wait for another opportunity after you have succeeded another award, it puts you in a line of jeopardy. When I say that, I'm saying it from the vantage point from my office. If you haven't received an award in the last 5 years, what we do is an updated performer review. So you could possibly have an award 5 years ago, and 5 years later, since you were not being active and you were not showing that you were actively seeking and receiving awards from NSF, we'll conduct another financial review. And a lot of things can happen in 5 years. So you could have got awarded 5 years ago, and then 5 years later, that we could find some issues or areas of concern related to your accounting that we may not want to award you a future award. So, but if you're constantly in the pipeline and you're constantly showing that you are building basically a portfolio of NSF awards, the likelihood that we'll do an updated performer your chances are reduced. Another thing, get out of your comfort zone. If you are comfortable with the EHR directorate, we have 7 or 8 now directorates. Look at other opportunities across the foundation. There's plenty of opportunities for you to broaden your horizons and broaden your NSF portfolio. Also think about collaborations for those grantees who are in big towns or even small towns, big cities, little cities. Look at community colleges, HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. If you are near a women's institution, Pacific Islanders, tribal colleges, wherever you are, always think about collaboration, because that gives you an opportunity to go into other disciplines within the National Science Foundation. And we're always looking for synergy and things of broader impacts. So always think about that when you're looking for opportunities. How can we basically create something that we haven't seen before at the foundation? And we're looking for that collaborative spirit whenever we're dealing with science and STEM. So make sure you do that and always look for opportunities. Also, and I can go on and on, so I might lose my voice. Also, make sure that you register for the NSF grant conferences. These are totally free. You can go on to, I'm not saying free, they're free online. Whereas I think it's NSF Grant Conferences with an S.com. And basically it's basically a resource guide with prior presentations from the Office of the Inspector General who deals with criminal activities. I strongly suggest you watch those because they are actual cases that went to court that talks about fraud, waste, and abuse. I always tell grantees to look at it because you just want to see what happens. A lot of things that may not you may not see in, say, the front page of the Washington Post. We don't want you in the front of the Washington Post. So, these are things that there were violations and it ranges. And so it's a great opportunity for you to see that. I think the Office of Inspector General does 2 major publications per year, if I'm not mistaken, and they're available to you as well. Also, we have numerous presentations that are archived on the website, so make sure you take full advantage of those. They're great discussions, they're great learning tools, great training tools for your staff and as well as PIs, and anyone who wants to learn more about NSF culture and our grant culture. And anybody, Colby, I'll give it to you because I continue to talk before I lose my voice.
Thank you, Rashawn. That was
no problem, Jill.
And motivating.
Thank you.
Maybe not the fraud part, but certainly the looking for opportunities and collaborations part. Corby, I don't mean to put you on the spot too much, but if you have anything on the top of your head that would be tips around annual reports, we would take those as well.
Oh, well, I think I covered them in my video last year. I really can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would say beyond that. Let me go to what Rashawn said just a minute ago. I want to clarify, in terms of looking for other NSF opportunities, he was mainly talking about awardee institutions instead of PIs, and he made the point about if your institution lets 5 years go by and has not received another NSF award, then the next time it's up for an NSF award, it might have to have another financial administrative viability review. So if your institution constantly looks at other NSF grant opportunities, then 5 years won't go by without a new award. And so I think that was the encouragement he was offering.
Stay in the pipeline. That was my statement. I forgot to say. Stay in the pipeline.
I was going to make one comment about annual reports, maybe, which is just to go ahead and feel free to share the challenges and things that come up, right? Like, we're trying to understand sort of what happened for you over the course of the year. So, for instance, with the the pandemic, we would expect to see insights or challenges that arose during the pandemic and things that were unexpected, and so there might be a sense that you have to only sort of provide only the positive things that happened, but it's okay to sort of give an account of the challenges that you faced as you kind of give a narrative of what occurred. So, don't feel like you have to kind of gloss over and paint a rosier picture. It's okay to talk through challenges, and then certainly the POs are happy to help you kind of strategize and think about ways to get around and to address the challenges that you might face.
It is a really good point. They are, again, it goes along with the idea that we really do want you to communicate with us and tell us how things are going, and we want to learn from your process. And so having some real information in the annual report about what's gone well, but also what are the hurdles along the way can be very helpful for us to know how we can help you and also to learn as we go. Thanks, Elise. Excellent point. I will answer the questions in the chat. I was writing, but we have time. That NSF 21-579 is the current IUSE solicitation, and that applies for the July deadline. So that's what you have.
Also, with you doing your annual reports, make sure you submit them in a timely fashion. The program officers have many other tasks that they have to do. So Please do not wait to the last minute to submit those reports, because if your report becomes overdue, any administrative action or pending proposal you may have waiting to be awarded will be delayed, because we cannot process any pending proposal or administrative actions until that overdue report has been reviewed and approved by your NSF cognizant program officer. So please be very mindful of your deadlines when you're supposed to turn in your annual reports.
And this ends up applying to your sort of network of collaborators as well, because you can have a collaborator has an overdue report on an entirely different project, and that's still going to hold up things on your project. So, you know, pick good collaborators and be a good collaborator. Get your reports submitted in a timely fashion. The question that's in now, if you have a 3-year IUSE grant and you're in your second year, can you submit another proposal? Yes, you can. If you look at the solicitation, there are limitations on the number of proposals you can submit in it's in a 12-month period. I think it runs October to October, but there's no limitation that says that you can't have an existing IUSE award while you submit another proposal. So that is allowed. We've been prepping ourselves all day to answer questions, so you got to pull some out. Rashawn has just gotten started.
I did. I thought I was going to have been bombarded with questions, but I guess they know it all at this point. No, but in all seriousness, please always ask early, ask often. We want to hear from you if there's something that you're questioning about, maybe the allowability, the allocability, the reasonableness of any cost on your budget. Please feel free to give DGA, Division of Grants and Agreements, a call. If there's something that you're maybe not sure, please let us know. Jill talked about the PAP guide. Please make sure you bookmark it. If you bookmark the PDF, it's very simple to do a Control F. That's how we do in our offices, and we just type in a keyword so we can pretty much find the subject matter that we need to discuss. Also, if you have a question about any policies or procedures or any terms and conditions, feel free to contact us at NSF. Also, make sure you are in constant communication with your office of sponsor programs at your institutions. Make sure you are formulating a good bond, a good relationship with them, because they are basically your point of contact when you're dealing with the National Science Foundation and dealing with any kind of regulations that you may not be aware of. Also, we do not play referee between the Office of Sponsor Programs and PIs. If the Office of Sponsor Programs at your institution says something is unallowable and you send an email to your program officer hoping for a different answer, you're not going to get it. So we usually get those kind of emails all the time where they'll say, well, my sponsor program officer said this is unallowable. And they'll forward us an email and looking for a yes when they already have a no. So we usually go to 99.9% of the time are always going to go with the Office of Sponsor Programs. It's very rare that we ever go against any policy or procedure that the institution has already laid out at their respective institutions. So make sure you are understanding what the guidelines and regulations are at your respective institutions. The Office of Sponsor Programs knows the federal regulations, so they are equipped to handle any kind of situations. But if there's something that you don't understand and the Office of Sponsor Research needs clarification or assistance, by all means, they can contact the Division of Grants and Agreements, and we can set up a Zoom meeting, Skype meeting, whatever, to discuss any issue or any subject matter you may have related to your project.
I want to add something on that same note. You have, so somebody mentioned, I think it was Corby mentioned about the new awardee guide, and and if you are going to be reviewed, make sure that you guys look at that information, which is online. The PNAG is called the PreAward.
Perspective
New awardee guide. Look at that and make sure that you do like a self-test to make sure that you are that you have the systems in place that you should have. So if DGA contacts you for that new awardee package, then you're ready to go. You already did your homework and you're ready to go. It is really important that you understand that now rather than later when you have received several awards and then there's issues coming up on your A123 or your single audit. Is really to do this early than later. That will save you a lot of headaches.
Correct. Thanks, Beatrice, for that. There's a question in the chat. What if one co-PI is going to work in a different university? Is that from the vantage point, or they're already on the award and they're going to work at a new institution? I want to make sure I answer it correctly. Okay, they're already on the award. So only thing we would need, well, you would need to do any kind of amendment request, but what you would need to do is update the OPI's new institution in research.gov. So that way, when there's another amendment that comes out, that person will then have the correct institution associated with them rather than the old one. But we wouldn't do, say, an amendment. Only way we would do an amendment if the person was coming on board for the first time at the new institution.
And Rashawn, there's another question that I think is DGA expertise. Is it okay to pay participants in user studies outside the US using NSF funds?
Okay. Pay participants outside of the US. Could they give some more context to what they're doing?
Yeah, if the person who put that question in could add a little bit more in an additional question, that would be helpful. I passed it to Rashawn because I thought it was a good question. I'm ready for the input, but we might need a little bit more on that. I'll talk briefly while we're waiting a moment. Do communication with the program officer, does communication have to come from the PI, or can a co-PI contact the program officer? A co-PI can certainly contact the program officer. This is more my suggestion than anything written in stone. I think it's helpful to make sure that that people are looped in and the lines of communication are open. So certainly different PI or different, we think of them sort of as a group of PIs. I realize there's a single PI and some set of co-PIs potentially. But it's nice to make sure that everybody's in the loop and that, you know, if you're making contact with the program officer, everybody knows, everybody on the project team understands what's being discussed. So I would encourage you not to leave anybody out of conversations, but yes, there's no requirement that only the PI of an award can make contact. We're happy to hear from any and all of you.
For the international activities, the income needs to be generated in the US. Any person that is working in an international location, China, Japan, whatever it is, Australia, they can participate on the project, but they cannot be paid for. They will be uncompensated individuals in the project. They can participate, but they cannot be compensated. That every dollar that we put out there needs to be the revenues. I mean, the earning needs to happen in the US.
Thank you. She said that in their proposal, they plan to interview students and professors teaching CS courses. Can we interview the students and professors teaching CS courses in non-US universities if they will follow our study protocol? That was the context.
Yes, I think that my answer actually is the same. Any monies received from NSF need to stay in the US. They're not meant to be paid for people outside. They can participate in the activities, but they cannot be compensated.
Thank you, Beatrice. I told you she was good.
That's awesome. That I learned another new thing today. So thank you, Beatrice.
Okay, Miss. Okay.
So I can answer the first one. My project is funded through both IUSE and NOISE. IUSE is the primary funding source. Will my reporting look different than projects that are only IUSE? No. Generally speaking, the NSF report has an annual report. It's a particular structure, and that structure is still going to be there. I mean, I'm guessing that your project has teacher preparation components in it, which is why it's jointly funded with NOIS, and so you'll likely be talking about those. But overall, the structure will be the same general IUSE annual report.
I can't see this, the transcript.
I think there was a new award guide or something.
Oh, the new award. Oh,
Or what's it?
Prospective New Awardee Guide. And we called it the PNAG, PNAG. I think Beatrice is answering, is that? Okay, perfect. Okay, there's another question. We have a budget. We have the budget to purchase lab modules in the project. The cost has risen during last year. Should I reduce the number of modules, or what do you suggest? That is an institution decision. We don't want you to reduce just because the price has risen. You can rebudget money if you want to stay with the same amount originally, but if you want to reduce it, you might want to talk to your program officer, because I don't want it to become now a change of scope. If it was truly necessary for you to stay at a certain number of lab modules, Jill or Corby, or at least y'all can jump in if I said that wrong, but they can rebudget those funds if they want to stay at the original and just absorb those costs.
We have seen that in the past, you know, due to inflation and all that, and what usually is done is that there's a rebudgeting, because of course the rebudgeting authority,
Right.
And some organizations decide to take a little less of the indirects as well. So it's up. I mean, it's up to the university to adjust accordingly. I mean, or institution to adjust accordingly because of that inflation. I was going to add something else that I just remembered. When there's communications between the PI and the SRO, and they're disagreeing and they're telling you that their policy is more restrictive than what NSF does, universities, institutions, organizations, they're allowed to have more restrictive policy. We have the baseline, and then they can be more restrictive. They cannot be more relaxed. You have to, right, meet the baseline, which is NSF, but they can have more restrictive policy always. And that's something that comes up all the time, because PIs want to do what they want to do, and the university saying no, and they look at NSF policy, well, but NSF policy says so, and you're more restrictive. We are good with universities, institutions, organizations to be more restrictive in their policy.
And we'll honor those policies.
Yeah.
So did we miss anything? Okay, this is donation to high school for outreach.
I think a little bit of maybe my generic answer in combination with this is, don't hesitate to talk to your program officer about the situation. They can't fix inflation, and the award is the award, but it's not the first time that they've heard about this kind of problem, and they may have some ideas of how you might go about it, or thinking through the process. And it kind of is, as Rashawn and Beatrice says, your decision with your institution in the end about how you're going to handle it. But the PO is happy to be a sounding board and give suggestions. So don't hesitate to bring it up. Inflation is quite the issue right now.
For all of us, trust. This is a donation.
We have caught up again.
Yes, we're good. I think we answered everyone's questions.
Because of you, Rashawn.
No, I don't have any more. Nuggets other than make sure you're following your solicitation. For those awardees who just received their award and they're just in it, it's always good to do a refresher. Go back and look at your solicitation, read it. I always tell, I don't care what year you're in, I always go back and read your original solicitation that you submitted the proposal to, and just make sure that you're on task and you're on target. Sometimes we see the award, we see the money, and then we just start running. but it's always good to go back and do these refreshers with the solicitation. Also taking time to, if you need to talk to your program officers, tell them about your highlights. If you had a special project, if you had a special event, they want to know these things because they actually put those events in their, I forgot what, well, I want to say it's directorate highlights. And basically it goes all the way up to the director at the foundation. So they want to see live activity. So don't wait always to the end of the year to tell all the great things that you're doing. If there's something that you really want your program officer to be aware of, please share that information. If you have handouts or electronic publications, whatever you want them to see, please share it with your program officer so they can then brag about you and what you are doing with the money that you have been given by the National Science Foundation. So please always share those things. Also, on the flip side, if something's not working, whether you're in a sub-award agreement that's not working and not yielding the results, or you're having some complications, talk to your program officers. They need to know these things so they can help you. Do not fear your program officer. We're not here to condemn or judge you. We're here to assist you. So if you don't tell us what's going on, we can't help you. So if you're having some complications, if you're having some troubles with maybe a design plan, a research plan, whatever it is, please discuss it with your program officer because they can offer you effective strategies and possible shortcuts, resolutions, or remedies to your problem. So please talk to your program officers. And if it's something related to your budgets and you feel like you're almost going down the wrong path, before you make that turn, please contact the Division of Grants and Agreements. We're here to assist you in the same manner. We're just going to do it from a budgetary perspective. So just know that the National Science Foundation is here to help you succeed. And we know that things happen. We know that things happen on a grant. We've been around a long time. So we know even when you have the best intentions, everything doesn't always work out how you budgeted in your proposals and in how you want your progress and your science to go. We know things happen, so you have to communicate with us so we can better assist you. I think that's it on my soapboard box today.
Thanks, Rashawn. That was a good point about the sharing activities and successes. That we do like to take interesting nuggets and pass them up the chain. We will not pass the challenges up the chain, just the exciting nuggets. But it's also I've had on a few occasions projects where they're running a virtual conference or having some sort of activity, and if you let us know about that, we might love to come listen or learn a little bit more about what's going on. It's a great way to learn more about your project that you are knee or neck deep in. But we would love to see more than just the annual report. So keep us updated. We enjoy knowing about it.
Now, Jill and Corbett, do you guys do reverse site visits with IUSE program or no?
No, IUSE doesn't have any levels that
require
through site visit or reverse site visit. So just the panel review process. Okay. And then annual reports.
Now we do site visits. We do 30 a year, and it could be one of these in particular. It's through a lottery system. We have a dedicated algorithm. If you have a high dollar amount of dollars in a particular category, that might throw you into the lottery. We pick 30 a year. In the last 2 years, all of them have been virtual, and I think this year will also be virtual. And it's an opportunity where the Division of Grants and Agreements and the Division of Cost Analysis and PreAward go out to the respective institutions. We go out there for 5 days, and it's not an audit. We go out to actually look at your policies and procedures, and we pick one award, and we really just dig in and see how you're drawing down the money, your policies, procedures. We look at your receipts and vouchers, invoices, et cetera. And we basically go out there to assist you, see if there's any problems. We consult with the program officers before we venture out and conduct these site visits. And it gives an opportunity for the grantee to ask us any questions on while we're on this virtual site visit. And basically what happens after the 5 days, sometimes with virtuals, they last for a little longer, but after it's concluded, we'll come draft a report, and basically we'll make recommendations on ways to strengthen their policies, procedures, and give them basically business assistance. So if you ever see any communication from the Division of Grants and Agreements or the Division of Cost Analysis and PreAward, do not panic. Like I said, it's not an audit. We are offering business assistance to come to your institution virtually now, of course, and basically help you develop new policies, help you just see if we can make the machine that you're running run smoother. And Beatrice, if you can add anything on that, please do.
Yeah, we also, so it's actually a risk-based approach. So we have a risk assessment that puts organizations based on funding, type of funding, and is all based on awards, not awardees. So it's pretty much all the awards at NSF, they're thrown into a pool, and then they're classified by, you know, their whatever risk factors we have. We also have some activities that are a desk review, and they're done by a contractor that NSF hires to do them. And we do a lot of those, and sometimes you might not be contacted for a site visit, but you would be contacted for a desk review, which performs kind of like the same things as a site visit, but with a limited scope. These are done, I think they take about like 2 to 3 weeks, and they will be requesting like all sorts of information from accounting system, financials, and specific areas of the budget for the award selected. Those all are reports that only have recommendations. There's no findings like audits. They're all recommendations for you to understand better. If there's any concerns in your policy and procedure, it just helps you understand better and address accordingly.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Thanks to both of you. That was great information. I think we still have all our questions answered, Chantal. So we might have really settled all the questions. Guess we can probably go ahead and wrap up. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we can. No, I said that's super amazing. I said, you know, thank you to all of our colleagues at NSF. Just generally, Rashawn, I think that you know, really raise the bar though.
Well, thank you.
You and Beatrice,
thank you. I appreciate that.
No, seriously, because I agree with Jill. I learned some things too. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So thank you for everyone that participated. If you need anything, again, you know, from the AAAS team, if you have any questions about the summit, my colleague Lauren already put that in the chat, but feel free to email us. Again, this is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the recording, obviously, if you registered. But thank you so much for your time. Take really good care, and we look forward to seeing a lot of you in person here in Washington, D.C. on June 1st.